Hi, I'm here with the lovely Jane Hutchens. Jane, how are you?
Good, thank you, Leah. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining me. Now,
Pleasure.
you were phenomenal and contributed to two absolutely spectacular, extremely detailed chapters. But I'd love to talk to you about. Thank you. I'd love to talk to you about the geriatric chapter today. But before we get started, love to actually find out how naturopathy found you and how did you sort of get into this whole area?
Um, so I trained as a nurse in the old hospital system, and I just had a very strong feeling at the end of my training was that we were missing something, and I wasn't very clear about what that was. I knew what we were doing was really important, but it just felt like the horse had bolted. And
Mm.
back then, things were different as well.
Mm.
And I saw a naturopath, and I had no idea how I saw her, or I found her, or I even knew how to find her. But it just sort of planted a seed. And for me, it enabled me to work in a different way as well. So to work more autonomously, have greater input directly with a woman or a family or a man and their health, as opposed to at that stage, it's very different now, simply following someone else's instructions.
Mm. Definitely. And
Hmm.
how did you sort of move with your career in naturopathy and blend? Because you've had lots of different other training and all
Yeah.
sorts of other things. Tell us a little bit about what you've done and how you've gotten to where you are now.
Yeah, so when I finished my nursing, I thought I was burnt out, which is spectacular after 3 years. Um, so I took a little
Excellent.
step back. Yeah, it's kind of understandable when you think about what happened, but I took a step back and I came back into healthcare, and some of that was through doing some home care with elderly people. Then I went into burns. When I worked in burns, I thought I don't want to work just in health. I need to look in the outside world. So I did a Bachelor of Arts because I wanted something non-health, because health in a hospital can be very insular.
Mm.
Um, Accidentally fell into majoring in women's studies. I didn't know it existed when I enrolled. Um, that made me think, well, I may as well work in women's health and
Yeah,
thereon. So I need to gynae oncology, family planning, naturopathy.
amazing. And
So,
how do you combine all of that now?
sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to say it's not the most strategic career path, but a fabulous one. I've had a fantastic time.
Well, that's the main thing. That's the main thing. How do you combine all of them in your practice?
I think, well, just to be clear, there is certainly scope of practice that we have to be really mindful of for
Mm.
both disciplines. But you can't ever take anything you've learned and experienced before away from who you are now. So
Mm.
that's probably the easiest way I'd explain it. It's like that old adage that no education is wasted education, even if it doesn't seem directly applicable right today.
Mm.
So it certainly gives me a great advantage in knowing hospital systems, hospital languages, orthodox medicine and how that works, and being connected in with some people. So that really helps. It helps me be able to translate sometimes for patients,
Yeah.
and be that kind of middle person, if you like. And I just, I don't know, I think it gives me a perspective that makes me comfortable working with people wherever they are, because I've worked with a lot of people in really diverse situations. I've worked a lot at end of life. I've worked a lot in fertility. So I think all of that experience just kind of adds up to who I am.
Mm. Mm. And if we talk, I guess now, and we'll talk next time, and we'll talk about your other amazing chapter, the pregnancy one. But if we talk about the geriatric chapter, I think your experience in both nursing and naturopathy, but your experience in aged care, end of life care, all that sort of stuff, it came through in such a compassionate, informative way. I
Oh,
mean,
great.
you could have just delivered it as content, and it could have just been factually based and systems oriented and, all that sort of stuff. But it had so much compassion and so much respect for the elderly population. And I always find that that's missing when you look at geriatric content otherwise. It's just so very, oh, well, you just give them, adjust their dose based on their weight and their age, and there you go, you've done it.
Yeah.
Not so, not so.
Yes, very much so.
What would you like to get across to people about that chapter? So what are the things that you think that we need to all be mindful of when we're caring about people in that age bracket?
Well, I think the word respect was one of the things that I wanted to bring into it, to acknowledge and to see and to hear older people,
Mm.
because in our culture, they're invisible
Mm.
at best, and they're derided commonly or infantilized.
Mm.
So aren't they cute? Really highly disrespectful. So first to kind of see and be with older people and show them the respect and dignity that they deserve. Not assuming people don't, but just as a broad societal comment. And when I moved to the mountains, I worked in a local hospital, which the demographic is, if we had anyone under 75, it was kind of weird. So I inadvertently did quite a bit of aged care, and then also looking after my mother at the end of her life. And it was awesome. It was just beautiful and difficult and challenging and all of those things, but really wanting the chapter to come back to, this is a person that's sitting in front of you asking you for help and support. It's not a disease state, it's not some pathology. This is a person, they have a history and they have a future. Their history might be longer than their future, but we have to work with them where they're at and what they need, and not reduce them to their pathology, to acknowledge that they are in a lifespan or it's a life stage and physiological things happen, and we absolutely have to bear that in mind. And it is more than just knowing what the glomerular filtration rate is. But I wanted to provide all that kind of physiology as a foundation. I didn't want to be prescriptive to say, well, this is the protocol if they've got hypertension. The systems base does that. I wanted to provide a foundation that people can say, okay, I can work with that and build my own protocol or my own treatment plan, using my clinical judgment, using this additional layer, if you like. Because hypertension at 40 is really different to hypertension at 80. And also, there was the thing I learned really strongly in this chapter, which surprised me, was under pharmacy and under treatment is just as pronounced as polypharmacy.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into a lot of my approach with health as well, and so around those social and environmental determinants of health. So it's not just the physical body in front of you, what influences that? And so the people who aren't being treated usually have lower levels of education, lower socioeconomic status, can't get to the doctor. They might be working with someone who's a bit ageist and thinks, no, you're 75, let's just let things pan out, it's not worth intervening. So, and I guess the statistics around that were found by accident when there's a significant international study trying to gauge where polypharmacy was worse, and they found that under-treatment was just as pronounced, but just in pockets. So that kind of really, hit at my social justice warrior. So it's that balance. Do we treat? We don't over-treat. We certainly don't ignore and under-treat. And we have to reassess that all the time, and perhaps more frequently with someone who is older, because transitioning is perhaps more profound and quicker than someone who's 30.
I mean, what an incredible resource you wrote, though, because there really is nothing quite like it, both from a compassionate perspective but an informative perspective, as I said. And I think there are too many clinicians out there that are probably over or under treating as well. And I don't think that they've had a resource quite like this. So really hats off to you, because it's a resource where I think that people will get so much confidence to go, I won't miss anything and I won't kill them. Two really key important variables,
It's a strong start.
It's a really strong start. But I also think the beauty of it really comes back to, it's a foundation of compassion for them. And I think it ties into the notion that, if we are an aging population and we are, a growing older population, that we need to really resource ourselves and upskill ourselves so that we can care for them adequately. So
yeah, absolutely. And always that question is, can I do this without supplementing or herbs as a herbalist and a nutritionist? But it's can I get the same outcome without giving them something else to do?
Yeah. Thank you. It's an exceptional chapter, and I really look forward to seeing how it unravels. And I think I really look forward to seeing how it gives people confidence to treat and to care and helps our population. So really appreciate it.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.